Hi there, and thank you for joining XRO, which is India's first AR/VR podcast. And today I'm really happy to have Mr. Ori Inbar. He's one of the leading experts in augmented reality and has spent close to 14 plus years fostering the augmented reality ecosystem. He earlier co-founded Ogmento, which was acquired by Apple, and it was one of the first venture-backed companies which was developing augmented reality games and technologies around it. Ori has also founded augmentedreality.org and AWE, the world's largest AR and VR ecosystem. He's also the founder of Superventures, one of the first early stage fund dedicated to augmented reality, and is also running the rlab.nyc accelerator at the New York City funded hub for AR and VR. And besides that, Ori has a double major in computer science and cinema from Tel Aviv University and is a graduate of INSEAD University Business Leadership Program. Ori, it's a pleasure to have you on the XRM podcast. So, it's best, I mean, that's something which I took out the net. So it's best, when my guest talks about, because there's so much I must have missed out in the journey, from where you started to where you have come. So run us through your journey, where you started from, what has been the challenges, and where you are currently at this point in time.
Hi, Eddie. It's good. It's great to be here. Good to talk to you and your audience. I've been in a few startups and large corporations in the past with my background in software development and management. And 2007, I left a really nice job with SAP to look for a new thing, something that would excite me. And that's when I discovered augmented reality. It was kind of an interesting thing because I came home to spend time with the kids, as they say, and I realized they're always stuck in front of a screen. And on one hand, I thought, this is how you communicate in the 21st century, but we're trying to find a way to get them closer to reality, to experience the world like I did as a kid. And that's when the idea of kind of combining what attracts people to computers and video games and combine it with reality. And later I discovered there's actually a term called augmented reality that has been doing this for over 40 years, but it's been hidden. I mean, no one has heard about it by that time, except for a few labs and research groups. So it became the mission to really find a way to bring it to the masses, to everyone out there, because I believe that this will change the way we interact with the world, the real world, and hopefully for the better. So like you described before, started a company, Ogmento, which was developing AR games back in 2009, quite early, as you can imagine. And it wasn't that different than what we know today as Pokemon Go. It was kind of a location-based AR game. And, we got some initial traction, but it wasn't enough at that time to convert it into significant revenue. But the technology that we developed was very valuable, and eventually, like you said, was acquired by Apple and became the foundation for the AR kit. And that was kind of a nice loop closure to see, from the early days to see that it's actually adopted by millions and millions of developers and users. But at the same time, the reason we started AWE was that there were a few entrepreneurs that got into the space that had some kind of growing businesses, but there was no way to convene, to get together, share ideas, help drive the growth of this concept, this industry. So we started AWE, 300 people in a room talking about things that no one outside of that room really understand. But that planted the seeds to what we know today is probably the largest community for AR and VR all over the world. It was kind of riding up the ups and downs of the industry over the last 12 years. But we like to think, we made a dent, at least in a sense that we help people connect, share ideas, educate people, and also communicate what's happening in this industry to the world at large. So that was kind of a nice, stream of work that happened over the last 15 years. And then Superventures is something that I started in 2016, along with other investors, with the idea that we need a fund that is dedicated to investing in early stage AR and VR startups. And it was mostly to create some level of awareness to the potential of this market, because many investors were kind of confused with this. Was some early successes with Oculus, with a huge sale to Facebook, but very few other examples of successes. So people really didn't know where it's going, and they found us as a good resource to help other investors understand, where the market is going and where the interesting opportunities lie. And that led us to today, which where I'm kind of fully focused on AWE and Superventures to help continue the next decade of evolution of this industry. Now that we're entering the mainstream, it's really about making sure that this technology applies to every single person on this planet and helps create a world that is worth living in.
You have played a crucial role in shaping this ecosystem. Like you also, I started, not so early, but I discovered virtual reality in 2015. And what I saw here in India was a lack of community and lack of ecosystem. And I guess all businesses are built on an ecosystem. If the ecosystem is thriving, then you can build a sustainable industry around it. That's the reason I founded Immersion, which is India's first VR film festival and conference. And whatever I've been doing, even the podcast, is in a way to kind of educate the population over here, because 1.3 billion people here in India, it's such a huge opportunity. And I too, like you, believe that AR, VR, MR, we're just scratching the surface with it. Eventually, once the technology actually matures, I think all possible industry verticals are going to get completely transformed, be it healthcare, be it education, be it entertainment. So I'm super excited about it. But unlike you, I took the path of virtual reality. So what was it that drove you to take augmented reality and forefront it?
So actually, I was into virtual reality back in the first wave in the early 90s. I tried some of the systems back then, and it was incredible. But very quickly, as we all know, it died out, and then went into a dormant stage for the next 10, 15 years. So that when I got into AR, it was when VR wasn't really a thing. It became a thing a few years later. And, on one hand, VR and AR are very closely related, similar skills, similar tools. They're all about 3D, but they're also very different in the way you're using it. Obviously, VR is something that you put on and you kind of escape the real world. Whereas with AR, you stay where you are, you just enhance it, but you still collaborate with people around you and things around you. Like I said, kind of the initial motivation to get into AR was really to get kids and other people to be more closely connected with the real world, and really, see what's happening around you, communicate with people around you, and with things in your vicinity. And that's why I leaned a bit more towards AR, but with the understanding that certain things are much better experienced in VR. In some cases, you want to teleport yourself to a different place or a different time, and that can only happen with VR. So I think it's really, these are two things that we want in our lives. We may use them in different times of the day, or some of them will be at work or outside, and others at home, kind of like you're consuming entertainment in front of the TV or the radio in the past. But they're really closely connected, and both will have significant role in our lives in the future.
Like you also, I completely believe that AR, VR, MR, all of these technologies are going to completely disrupt us. At this point in time, I see that all of these technologies are, like a 5G or an IoT seems to be an enabler of what is going to come next. We are we have been restricted to a 2D platform for 100 years, and but that's what we only know, and that's what we got so used to. But we are getting into the spatial computing, and everybody is excited about it. Would you like to talk a little bit about spatial computing, and what are the opportunities you see opening up with spatial computing when it matures?
Yeah, there were a few names to describe this new wave. Because it's kind of hard to grasp. People were calling it AR or VR, and later XR is kind of an overarching term, and many other terms actually that a lot of them were forgotten so far. But I think spatial computing is probably the best way to describe this new wave because it kind of touches on how it's different than anything else before that. Before that, we're consuming information from computers through a two-dimensional screen, whether it's a desktop or a mobile device or a tablet. But still, the interaction is through a two-dimensional screen. And what separates spatial computing from what we've experienced so far is the fact that you're interacting in space, whether it's through a two-dimensional screen or through glasses or headset, doesn't matter, but you still move around in a space, and the virtual content behaves just like real content in the real world, right? So when you move your head, the object looks different from different angles. And so that's why I personally like the term spatial computing as a way to describe this whole movement, this whole new wave. But it's been kind of challenging, I think, to kind of get this term to stick. People still like to get attached to the acronyms, the AR, the VR, which is kind of confusing to the audience at large.
All of these emerging technology, whether it's AR, VR, MR, 5G, IoT, artificial intelligence, it's got this huge hype, but yet we haven't seen transformational use cases. Where do you think, or what are the use cases you think, or which industries you think are going to create the most transformational values in 2021 and 2022 in the immediate future?
Well, I think, the adoption has increased dramatically over the last few years. Just a few years ago, if you talked about AR, very few people have even heard about it. And VR was something of the past that will never actually happen, right? So I think in that sense, we covered a lot of ground, and the adoption is, at least in terms of awareness, is at an all-time high. But still, I think you're right that most people do not understand the potential of how these technologies can change everything in their lives, in their daily lives or at work, only in small places. And if you look at VR, of course, it's been adopted in games where it's kind of a natural progression. But even there, you didn't see the masses of the gamers actually adopting it. There's, millions of headsets being sold, probably in 10 to 20 or 30 million headsets out there. So it's, it's a good number, but it's still only a fraction of the gamers out there. But then, when you look at the enterprise, using VR for training has proven to be working really, really well. And it's, it's been adopted gradually in more and more industries. You see it in healthcare, you see it in maintenance and manufacturing as a much better way to learn without the risks of the job. And then when you switch to AR, mobile AR has been adopted by billions of over 1 billion people. So it's not a niche thing anymore. And we're seeing it being adopted, primarily in social, for face filters, like in Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok, where it's basically popularized the concept of AR, even though it's just for entertainment and social applications. But in e-commerce, it has become a huge driver of a transformation, especially in last year when people shopped even more online than before. Getting this ability to view the product in your real environment, in your home or on your face or on your body, is something that many users got attracted to, and it showed significant improvement in all the metrics around retail and e-commerce. Conversion rates are much higher, dwell time is much higher, returns are lower, so all the metrics are going in the right direction. And there's a lot of proof for that. So now it's really just a matter of gradually getting more and more enterprises and corporations to adopt it. But I think it's much faster than we've seen before, because all the ingredients are there, the proof is there, and there's a lot of reference points for how to do it. And part of what we try to do is just to make sure that the ecosystem as a whole has all the different pieces that you need in order to drive the adoption. So it's not just the tech; it's also the people that can implement it. You need to have creators that can actually create experiences in this new form of interaction. You need people to educate. You've got to have classes. You got to have consultants that know this. And that requires time, really, to kind of fill all the gaps and to ensure that you have all the levels of support that you need in order to support, a massive adoption of AR and VR on a Earth level scale, basically.
Right. Yeah. So yes, there are so many problems at this point in time. The education, where the awareness, and somehow we humans are not very open for change. We are really averse to change, and all of these technologies are, once it starts maturing, it will shatter or change or disrupt all the traditional mediums. So you pointed out, try before buy. There is, there are so much opportunity for enterprise to leverage these technologies. There are so many use cases, but at least here in India, I see pockets of industries or people actually implementing AR and VR. There needs to be possibly maybe like a big brother, like an Apple coming in, or maybe like, how Pokemon became a rage. And that kind of died out. We need something else which becomes the classic use cases, which compels people to say, okay, this is something which is a really good technology, and here is where I see the real world value. When do you think we will see AR, VR, MR being mass adopted? And what would it take to get it mass adopted?
Yeah, listen, it's a process. When I started augmentedreality.org, it's almost 10 years ago, the mission or the goal that we set up for is to achieve 1 billion users of AR, and by the end of the decade, by 2020. And if you look at the numbers, from Facebook, from Snapchat, kind of combine what's happening from Pokemon Go, it looks like, last year we actually achieved and probably crossed this number. Are they using it for something essential that they cannot live without it? Probably not yet, to your point, right? So, but again, if you look at how people are using it for shopping, how people are using it for measuring things. Another great example is, with Google Maps. Google Maps has now a feature of, probably the most impressive AR capability out there, and still very few people actually are aware of it. So you basically, instead of just looking at the map and trying to guess where the north is and where you need to go, especially in large cities, you can actually pull it up and see in AR exactly where you are. And it's actually using the information around you, the buildings and the monuments, to detect exactly where you are. This is an incredible advancement of AR, and it's worldwide. It's anywhere you go with Google Maps, which is everywhere, you can actually use that feature. So I think that's kind of, we're starting to see some of these examples where it's something that everyone will use every day, just because, it's a better experience than the traditional 2D 3D capability, whether it's maps or something else. So we crossed the 1 billion. I think we're now headed towards, like a 2 or 3 billion users in the next few years. I don't know if it's gonna be like every single person on Earth by the end of this decade, but I think we'll get really close to that. As more and more people get into it, you see more and more people that identify needs for AR in their industry or in their line of work, and start developing it for that, or kind of developing AR applications and VR applications for that specific use case. So, is there like a killer use case? I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think you need to think about how, when every person on Earth can think about how this technology can help improve their lives, their work, and also maybe at the same time help ensure that this planet survives the next few decades. Which I think AR and VR can really help with. Then we'll get to a point where everyone is using it, and that's really kind of our mission at this point.
Some of the biggest companies like Facebook, Apple, Google are vested in the space. So yes, the future looks exciting. And maybe in the next decade or so, maybe we'll have a wearable device like this, converging from a computer and your mobile. You won't require your computer, you won't require a mobile, because it'll converge into one single wearable device. And yes, maybe, adding real world value, compelling you to actually wear a glasses full day. So yes, I'm excited for the space. Would you like to talk a little bit about AWE? For me, when I put out Immersion, which was India's VR Film Festival conference, it was a lot of hard work. I put in more than around 2 years trying to knock it some of the biggest companies and making them understand that AR, VR, MR is the next big thing. And we need to build a community and an ecosystem over here so that there's larger awareness of this technology and what it could do to businesses, and individuals, etc. How difficult or easy was to pull off AWE, and what's the future vision of AWE?
Well, AWE started, like I said, as a means for us to get together, for us, entrepreneurs and researchers in AR. I never thought I'll continue to organize this conference and bring it to become such a big thing as it is today. But that's how it happened. It grew because there was a need for this. And because, our focus from the beginning was really on creating business in AR and later VR. Everything we did was around that, right? So it's about how do you generate business? You help people educate themselves in the market about this technology and the opportunities. You help people connect, right? Just the fact that you're putting them in the same room, you see a lot of business happening, partnerships, customer acquisition, and awareness, right? So the focus on these two things kept growing this event, and as the industry was growing, the event was growing as well. And then there became a need to run it in different places around the world, right? So we started in the US, then we had an event in Asia for China and the whole Southeast Asia, and later in Europe, and now we have meetups that run on a monthly basis in over 20 cities around the world. So from a conference, it really became a community of professionals working in AR and VR that again still connect to generate business, educate each other, create awareness to the world at large, and like I said, we see that we were able to make a dent in kind of the growth and the adoption of this technology world at large. So if in the first 10 years, the focus was on getting it to the mainstream, I think we're now at that threshold. And the next 10 years are really focused on making sure that this path is done right. Because, this technology, like any technology, can be used for good or bad. And I think a lot of us in the industry want to ensure that it's actually being used for the correct things, and keeping things like privacy and security in mind, as well as ensuring that it's used to protect the future of this planet and humanity on this earth. I mean, we're facing a lot of threats on this planet, and we believe that this technology could actually help us overcome many of these challenges. So that's kind of at the core of our journey for the next 10 years.
Wish you the very best for it. This is the second time you're stressing on AR, VR playing a role in taking care of the planet. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no secret that it's probably the biggest threat that humanity has ever faced, the climate change. And if you think about the number one challenge here is awareness. Just understanding the impact of every action we take on the planet, and how things are going to play out in the next next few years. And AR and VR have this incredible ability to visualize things before they happen, or maybe visualize things that are hidden, that are happening all around us, but we just don't see it. So I believe that using these technologies to fight climate change and to create this awareness, you can make every person an activist. Because let's say you see that what's going to be the impact of you taking a car right now, or lighting this light, or whatever it is in your daily life or your work. If you can see the impact of that effort on climate change, and maybe you can visualize for you some alternatives that you can do, that can create, make every single one of us an activist in changing our behavior, which is really what this is all about. It's really about us understanding the impact and changing our behavior. And I don't know if better technologies than AR and VR to achieve that. So we're counting on it, and I'm already seeing a bunch of startups that are thinking about this and are starting to take steps towards that. It's still, it's challenging. It's not something that is easy to do. But I think once there's the attempt to actually go there, there's a recognition of the power of the technology, and people starting to kind of harness it towards the fight against climate change. I think we can get there pretty soon and drive a massive behavior change around the world.
Yes, I think the reason I'm excited is because all of these technologies, whether be it's AR, VR, MR, or IoT or AI, it's got the potential to kind of reverse the damage that we humans have inflicted on a planet Earth, And it's nice that you're thinking like that, where, because most of the people are really not bothered about, or do not have the foresight of what a potential technology, a transformational technology can do. Technology, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. If we apply it for good, you can do good, and if you apply it for bad, you can do bad. Privacy being such a huge conversation. I mean, in a world where we have glasses, AR, VR glasses, it will be capturing all our data, and a privacy will be such a main conversation over there. And it's nice that you're talking about actually implementing AR, VR for good. Now, I going back to the AWE, I wish that you have actually anyway spread out to the world. You are in China and US, Europe. I wish that you have AWE in India also, because we need more players to come in India. And because anyway, the world, because of COVID, somehow it has made us a hyper-connected world. We are now more connected and more closer to each other. We sitting and having a conversation like this, and thanks to technologies, actually, that is what has enabled us. So these small things are converging, and what's coming next is going to be like really, really exciting. Would you like to talk a little bit about Superventures, and what is the evaluation process for Superventures and for the startups? And are you open to investing in global startups? Because India has over 2,000 XR startups at this point in time.
Well, first of all, I would love to collaborate and kind of bring the AWE gospel, if you will, to India. It looks like you have already built quite a nice community around it with a bunch of activities. So what we've been doing since the inception is really collaborate with all the local groups that were kind of driven by passion for adoption of AR and VR, and just by collaborating, connecting, and educating again, we can spread the word about what's happening everywhere. Yeah, definitely in favor of that. And we've been looking at many companies coming out of India over the last decade. Every year, there's been like a few kind of shining spots that either got funding and were kind of reaching to the American or European markets. And we've been kind of evaluating a bunch of those folks for investment. So we're definitely investing all over the world. Since our focus is very narrow on AR and VR, we cannot afford to focus on a certain geography. So we really look for good companies, good teams, good ideas all over the world. What we've been doing with Superventures, it's kind of a challenging thing for an organization that is really helping push the entire industry forward. So, everybody is good. Everybody that is doing something towards creating technologies, adopting technologies, is part of the community. So how do you say, how do you select who's better than others, right? That's been kind of a shift. However, when you look at investing in a VC fund, one of the main reasons is return, right? So you need to make sure that there's a good return, and that's why the qualification process for startups has been looking not just at how excited we are about the use case, which we are excited about almost any new use case that is applicable for real people, but here it was really about kind of identifying that there's enough big of a market for the startup, the team can actually sustain it and bring it to a significant size, and that's kind of where we put our money, kind of put our money where our mouth is, but in a sense that will really generate a return for the investors. So that was kind of slightly different. But what I'd like to say is that for every startup in the world, we can help in some way. It could be an investment, or it could be joining one of our recent classes that helps startups prepare for fundraising, right? So, it's like a 6-week course. You almost any company that already has an idea, an initial product, and a target market could participate in this class, and not only get help from mentors from around the ecosystem, but also connect to different people, whether it's partners, customers, and so on, that this network of AWE community can help connect with. So that's kind of another example. And then we have the meetups all over the world that kind of meet on a regular basis, and it's a great way to expose startups, from India or from other places to the entire community, and just give them a stage. And then of course we have the larger conferences where post-COVID we'll get back to in-person events where you can actually drive more business than your typical virtual event, and that's an opportunity for startups, for large corporations, for creators, independent people, everyone to really get together and advance whatever they're trying to advance, right? So this is just kind of to show that for any company in this industry, for any individual interested in this industry, there's something that the AWE community can provide.
Thank you for being part of XRM Podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you. You have been vested in this business since 15 years, and thanks to you, I think augmented reality is is now known globally, and there is so many other things that you're doing around, the augmentedreality.org, Superventures, and I think we need more individuals such as yourself, because I guess even if you have one individual in different parts of the world, this entire acceleration of uh, immersive technology would accelerate much faster, and we will see real world values of this product. As an ending, or the last note to my audience, since you've been invested is for the last 15 years, you have interacted with some of the top startups, what the industry has been like and where is it going. So would you like to kind of paint a picture of of what the world is going to look like in this decade? How excited enterprise or people should be for AR, VR, MR?
That's a big one. But actually, last year I started to talk about kind of our mission for the next 10 years, kind of looking back from 2030, right? So instead of discussing all the different challenges and steps that we need to take to get to the future, I did a kind of a different exercise, which is, let's look at the year 2030 and see the impact of AR and VR on everything. And it's been a really fascinating exercise for me. And I think it's a message that resonates really well with a lot of people. First of all, you see that the economy impact of AR and VR on the world, the entire world, is about $1.5 trillion of kind of additional economic impact. And that's, something that was put together, I believe, by PwC, a study by PwC that came up with this number. So that just gives you the sense of the impact on the economy side. But then, when you start drilling into each aspect of our life, you see that it has huge impact on how we do health. So better outcome, longevity has been extended, and at a lower cost, right? So that's just on healthcare. We talked about kind of the climate change, of the potential of really impacting there. There's, when you look at the like areas like travel, I think, especially VR is going to have a huge impact on travel. You, instead of binging on Netflix TV series, you'll be binging on travel. You'll just be traveling all over the world and feeling like you're actually there. So that could be, another huge impact. But I encourage people to just check it out. Kind of the spatial world of 2030 is, a video that I made, and also a blog post that kind of lists the main outcomes that I believe will happen by 2030. And it's not an accurate prediction, but it gives you a sense of the potential of what this technology could do. And if we believe that this is possible and this is good for us, we want to get there, then I'm sure the industry will find the path to get there, and maybe even sooner than 2030. I mean, it's still 9 years away. I think that we can achieve a lot by then.
Lovely. Thank you, Ori. It was a pleasure and honor to talk to you and get your insights. And definitely, I will look up the video and put the video online so that my audience can go through it. So wish you the very best. Keep on doing what you're doing, because you are, like you mentioned, you have created a dent and making a mark. And I wish there's more people like you around the world, creating an ecosystem, building a community, because this technology is growing exponentially. And in another couple of years, it's going to completely transform and disrupt all traditional business functioning. And so thank you once again. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Ori. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Eddie. It's been a pleasure. And folks, if you want to learn more, just go to AWE-Star.com. And then, get in touch and engage with the community out there.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks very much.